Well, we're going to spend the next several minutes talking about what happened in Buffalo, New York this weekend. Friends and family are honoring 10 people who were killed and 3 others who were shot by an 18-year-old self-described white supremacist. The grocery store where it happened is still blocked off with investigative tape, but outside a memorial for the people who were taken. Family members say many of those people were parents, grandparents, great-grandparents. They were elders of the community. One person ran a food pantry in the neighborhood for a quarter century. Another offered rides to that grocery store to anyone who ever needed it. And also among those who died, a store security guard who police say tried to stop the shooter. And about that shooter, over the weekend, police said he was motivated by racism and was looking to specifically hurt and kill black people. He drove 200 miles from his home, targeting the area he went specifically because it was a thriving black community. The suspect in his jail and has been charged, and he's also probably facing hate crime charges on top of the murder charges he already faces. The white shooter had so much hate in his heart, hate he documented in a 180-page document he didn't hide. In those pages, he wrote extensively about his adherence to what is called great replacement theory. Simply put, that racist conspiracy theory says that non-white people are being brought into this country to replace white people. That horrifying theory isn't new, but in the last 4 years, it's been cited as the inspiration for the murders in New Zealand, at that mass shooting, at synagogues here in America, 2 different ones, and at a church in Texas. To talk about this, we welcome back Dr. Uhuru Williams from the University of St. Thomas. Dr. Williams, thank you for coming on, and sadly for coming on again about the ugliness right in front of us.
Good to see you, Jenna. Thank you.
You too. Replacement theory in this shooting, present again. What is it, and what do we need to understand about it, if anything?
Well, for most Americans, they became aware of it after the Charlottesville incident in 2017, where you had alt-right protesters chanting, "We will not be replaced." And that dates back to a book that was published in 2011 by a French philosopher by the name of Renan Camus, who articulates this vile idea that there's a conspiracy afoot to replace foundational Americans, white Americans, with immigrants, in his case, from Muslim-speaking countries, black and brown people in Europe and France. Here in the United States, it's taken on and been articulated by far-right conservative talk show hosts and others, this idea that it's an effort to replace foundational white American voters here in the United States with people from Latin America, with African Americans and others for voting purposes. It's a very vile theory and a conspiracy theory that really at this point has taken on a life of its own and has resulted in a number of violent encounters like what we saw over the weekend in Buffalo.
You've seen this not 1 time, not 4 times, not 10 times, but many times over decades. Dr. Williams, does it surprise you how often you're seeing it now?
It doesn't surprise me at all, unfortunately. We find ourselves in a moment where these types of ideas are gaining traction among people who are angry and looking for a way to vent that anger against people who they see as responsible for their displacement. What's unfortunate is that this has a long strain in American history, and it dates back really to the founding in many ways. You can find these types of racist ideas articulated by people like Thomas Jefferson, much later at the turn of the century by people like Madison Grant. And in our contemporary moment, they have been sanitized, but at the core, they're the same idea that somehow we must protect white Americans or white people from the mixing with an influx of black and brown people. So it is white supremacist at its core. And this is what people really need to understand. We're not just talking about a mass shooting in Buffalo. What we're talking about are the fruits of white supremacy and how they continue to poison America to its soul.
Right. You and I spoke of that we, in this conversation, need to put that first, because that is a sickness in America that's been around for 400 years, and it's getting worse. I have one last question for you, just about 30 seconds, and it's a personal one. Dr. Williams, you are an African-American man. This conspiracy theory talks about getting rid of people like you, getting rid of people like me, a Jewish person. What do you feel when you see this in the news?
I feel a deep sense of sadness. I also feel a responsibility for particularly African Americans, the LGBTQ community. those who are victimized by anti-Semitism, anti-Asian hate also, to find a way to work together to stem the tide of this type of hateful language and rhetoric. It has no place in our society. It has no place in our country as a whole. So we need to work together to find ways to build community. I think back to the Chauvin verdict last year and the summation. We are that bouquet of humanity. We have to embrace that and find ways to work together to live the ideal of what we aspire to. And it's not this hateful message that inspired the shooter in Buffalo.
Thank you, Dr. Williams, for being on Breaking the News tonight, and thank you for working with us on this as well. Appreciate you.
Good to see you.